Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Zarina here, aka Woolly Nomad. Right, we've knit the sock and all the parts are up for you to have a look at. Today we are going to put this sock aside because we're knitting the second sock. So that's why we don't want second sock syndrome, and we're going to do the second sock hopefully all in one go in this episode. So it's going to be a long episode, so grab your tea or coffee, grab your knitting. First point of call is to change these ugly balls into something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So I'm going to wind these probably by hand because I haven't got my wool winder with me today, and I'll come back in, like, for me an hour, for you 2 seconds, with the new balls of wool, and we're going to start our project, which is the second sock of this. And you know, in this one we did a couple of things that weren't that great. Like here we did a helical yarn in here, waste yarn, which kind of caused problems which we fixed, and that was all right. But you know, you might not want that when you're actually knitting your sock. You might not want to be you might not want a problem to be solved because you might not have one with your sock. So yeah, so hopefully the second sock is going to be a better detailed version of the sock than this one. But you know, this had good stuff going on. I like anomalies, to be honest with you. Right, let's get on and wind these balls. Right, so here we are with our wound balls of yarn, and we've got a nice yarn ball going on. So that's quite nice. Right, so let me go through the materials for the second sock. So they are the same as the first sock, but I'm going to go through them because this is a standalone episode, and you don't necessarily need to have watched the first sock if you didn't want to. But the idea was to motivate you to make the first sock and then the second sock so that both socks are made and finished. So we've got our 2.25 millimeter needles, and they're the Knit Pro Zing, and they're the corded needles, so they're a 40 centimeter cord, and I think that's tip to tip actually, but I'm not quite sure. I haven't really measured them, to be honest. Yeah, so they're the Knit Pro Zing. Then we have 2 yarns. This yarn is a Drops Fable. It is a sock yarn, so it's got 75% wool and 25% polyamide. This yarn is a King Cole, and I don't know the variety or particular type, but it is a sock wool, and it's also 75% wool and 25% polyamide, and the polyamide makes the wool a bit stronger, and that's why we like to have the mix. You can alternatively make socks out of, let's see, just wool. They're not as strong on the heels and things, you know. There we go. But what you can do is, I suppose, you could make the whole sock out of wool and then put the heel and the toe in with the mix if you wanted to, and that would make the main area stronger. Anyway, that's just a thought. So yeah, anyway. Right, so we're using these 2 yarns, and we're going to use this yarn to cast on because with our first sock that's what we did, and we're going to do the Turkish cast on. And then we're going to also, after the Turkish cast on, we're going to do a round toe. Right. So we're going to make a little knot, first of all, like so, and pop it on one of the needles. Now, I don't know if it matters which needle you pop it on, to be honest with you, but I'm just going to put it on that one, which is the right-hand needle. Okay. So you angle your knitting so you're holding your needles like so. Oops, airplane going by. Should we let it go by? Yeah. So you hold the needles like so, in not the palm, sort of along your fingertips here really, and hold them down with your thumb. That makes it easier to then maneuver this yarn. So this is our tail here, it's called a tail, and this is our working yarn. And what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap this yarn around the needles a few times, and I'm making, and I haven't discussed this, but I'm making a 72 stitch count sock, and I'm going to wrap 12 times. There is a pattern available, so if you go down in the description you can find the pattern link. But here we go. But I'll tell you what we're using anyway for a 72 count stitch sock. If it's a different count, which I might have versions of actually, do check out the pattern link then for the other versions, for the smaller versions. So I would say this is a large sock. Okay, right, back to the matter in hand. Right, so we're holding our needles like so, and we're just going to wrap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then the yarn, we're going to angle it like this, and the yarn is sort of up. And the tail is down. Now, you might want a longer tail than that actually, it's a little bit short, isn't it? Yeah. Oops. Bumped the camera. Right, then what you do is you pull out the needles that you're not going to use. So we're going to start with, should we start with the top or the bottom? I don't know, let's pull out the bottom for now. See where we are. Now you've got to make sure that each needle is going to knit itself, if you like, with itself. So these two are going to knit on this side, and then these two are going to be knitting the other side. So basically from a Turkish cast on, the knitting grows in both directions sort of, and in a round. That's why you don't have sort of a hole at the end. It kind of grows from where the hole would have been. So moving on. So we're using the top needles for the first stitch, and we have to move these out of the way because otherwise we've got too many needles in the way and you might get confused, and it's a good indicator that, okay, this side we're not using. Right. So first of all, let me angle this. You're going to go into that first stitch as if to knit. So we are kind of doing a knit type stitch here. Yeah, and then try and hold your knitting with one hand. You know, best practice tips really, because this hand is the one that is working the yarn, and this active needle, if you like, is what we call it, I suppose. Right, so we take our yarn round as if to knit, and then we pull it out like so, and then you take the stitch off, and we're going to repeat that for all the stitches we have here. I'm just going to get in closer. 2, 3. Now it might seem that they're kind of loose, and don't worry because obviously they're not actually stitches, they were just bits of yarn we twisted around. Where are we? 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There you go. So we now got 12 stitches on that needle. Now if we count the other ones, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We've actually got 12 there, and we've got this extra knot. So we can take the knot out. We don't have to keep that knot. But first of all, what we're going to do is, so we don't get confused, we're now going to turn our knitting round. Oh, not that way. Wait a minute, where's the... oh yeah, it is that way. Right. That way. And we're going to try and attempt to keep the working knitting on the top and the one we've just knit on the bottom. So what we do is we pull back the needle we pulled out previously. It's on the top. Sorry, I've been doing something with a pen. Didn't realise, got grubby hands. Okay, so that's the top needle, and so yeah, so I'm going to put that one in, yeah, and we're going to pull the bottom needle out. Now we know we need to pull the bottom needle out because if you look, the yarn is attached here. So that means we've just knit that row. So it's a good indicator as to where you are, so you don't get confused with the knitting. Right, now we can take that off, because sometimes you will find that the way you've knitted that first stitch, you've got 11, and then you can knit the knot as well. But I think on it 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We've got 12 stitches. So I'm just going to pull that knot out. Actually, I'm going to leave it in, because that's kind of a good sort of denotion of which one is the waste yarn. Although it's not long enough to get confused really. But sometimes you can get confused as to which one you're using, and you sometimes knit with the waste yarn by accident. Well, it's happened to me. It may not have happened to you, and it may never happen. Hopefully it won't. But it doesn't matter. It's all about, you know, pulling stuff out, isn't it? Anyway, let's move on. Anyway, so we're knitting the first stitch, and second stitch, and then you just pull that a bit tight to tighten up those stitches if you want to. Third stitch, fourth stitch. This can be tricky if you've got splitty yarn, so make sure that you get your needle, well, I try to make sure I get my needle in there properly. Sometimes you don't know, so you just have to pull it out again and try again. So splitty yarn is when it kind of goes into this sort of area here instead of going through the stitch properly, and that just won't work. So you need to make sure your needle goes in through the stitch. That should be 10. 11 and 12. Yeah, so that's our cast on, basically, our Turkish cast on. Right, so now we have our needles in that direction again, well, our working needle in that direction, so we've got to turn it round, and doing that keeps your knitting kind of nice and organized, you know. And then the top needle is the one we're going to be using next, so we're going to pull that in. This is where having a smooth bump is helpful. I mean, these bumps are not too bad, but they could be better. And we're going to pull out the needle we have just been working with that is now non-active. The active needle is going to be the top needle. So if you try and keep your needles organized like this, okay, these two are those and these two are those. Okay, so what you don't want to do is knit that row on that needle with one of the other needles, because then one of the needles will fall off and you'll have to knit it back in again. So it's not a difficult thing to do, but it's just a bit annoying, to be honest. So the next row we're going to do an increase. You have the option to do a round of knitting just to embed it if you want to, but I like to just carry on and start the increases. So increase. First of all, we knit one stitch and then we're going to increase by one stitch. And the way I'm increasing at the moment is just picking up that bottom stitch and increasing. There are other ways to increase, which you can, but for these socks I'm just going to do that because it's just the simplest way of doing it. And then you just carry on knitting. So for the first round you're going to knit one stitch, increase, knit to the end 2 stitches, and then increase, and then knit the last stitch. Well, knit the last 2 stitches actually. So there's the 2 stitches. So we're going to pick up that underneath stitch and yep, there it is. Again, splitty yarn can make this a little bit difficult. This Drops Fable is a little bit more splitty than the King Cole. So if you don't want splitty yarn, use King Cole. But Drops Fable is really nice. It's got a nice texture and feel to it. So Don't be put off by split yarn, to be honest. You know, just see what you can do with it. You know, it's good to use all types of yarns and experience all different kinds of wools. Right, so we're knitting 1 stitch. Oop. And then we're going to sorry, we're going to increase at the 2nd stitch. Right. Here we are. Yeah. Increase, and then we're going to knit to the end. I hope you can see this okay. I'm trying to angle it. I'm not going to say I'm the best cameraman here. But I'm trying to angle it so that it, you know, it'll if it's too near it won't pick it up. There you go, about there is good, isn't it? Right, so that's the last but 2. So then pick up that stitch from below. Oop, where are we? See, it's split, so it's gone a bit funny. There it is. Right, get in there. Right. Oh, nope, dropped it. If that happens, just pick it up. Just pick it up. Don't worry about it. There. And last one. So that's our first round of knitting, or first row. Sometimes a row is referred to, in this case, something on 1 needle. So if that happens, just, you know, take it as you get it. But usually a row is the whole thing and a round is the whole thing. So, what's happened here? Okay, that might be where I dropped my stitch. Oh no, it's not. There it is. There's one on that side too. Yeah, that's okay. Right, so now we're going to do the 2nd round, which is another increase round, but slightly differently. So we turn our work. We're trying to keep it organized, so we're going to pull the out needle in, because that's the one we're going to be using, and the in needle out. And just to make sure we're knitting in the right direction and we don't knit that way by accident, just check where the yarn is. So the yarn is coming from this needle. That means this needle is done. We've knit with this needle. We're not knitting with it now. So we're going to get the other side of that needle. And then we're going to, oh, fiddly. Then we're going to be knitting. Okay. So in this instance, we're going to knit 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then on the 4th stitch, we're going to pick up that under stitch and knit it. There we go. And we're going to do that, well, we're going to now continue knitting until we get to the last 4 stitches. Trying to stay in focus. Right, see that? The yarn is split. Can you see it? So don't just knit that, try and repair it. So I'm going to take that top bit, which should be there, should be this bit. Should be the understitch, shouldn't be that stitch. Yeah, so that's a way of keeping your stitches neat, you see. And you don't have to hurry with this part of the knitting. You can go slowly. Oh, 1 minute, sorry, I've knit too many. Right, so there's 4 stitches there. Where are we? There we go. 4 stitches. And we're going to knit that understitch. Like so. And we've got, and then we knit the 4 stitches. Actually, to be honest with you, wait a minute, I did up to 4, but I suppose you could do up to 3 if you wanted to. Does it make a difference? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. 3 stitches, 4 stitches. What's in a stitch? Okay, so we're pulling back our, oops. Oh dear. Okay, it's all right. It was just a bit loose. Yeah. So sometimes if that edge is a bit loose, just pull your, you know, where the where the tail is. Sometimes that will be a bit loose. So just pull that tail, it tightens it up a little bit, and it's easier to see what you're doing. Right, so I've just knit with these needles, so I'm going to pull that out. And then I'm now going to knit with this top needle. So as you can see, yeah. And as I said, take your time when you start it, because this is kind of a kind of setup, isn't it? You kind of want to make this bit neat, and you also want to organize your thoughts about it, what you're doing, what's going on. You don't need to rush it, basically. You can always rush later on when you're doing the body of the sock. So that's the understitch I've just knit, and then that's the normal stitch, and then I'm going to knit to the end 4. Yeah, so you can have more, you can have 4, you can have 5, you can have 3, it doesn't matter. The point is to not have the same as the first row. So in the first row it was knit 1 stitch and then increase in the next stitch. If you did that, you would get a kind of a holy kind of edge, which would actually be a bit tough as well, a bit of a tough edge, to be honest with you, every single row. So having a slight differentiation here in where the stitch is picked up and knit actually helps to even the sock out. So that's what we're kind of doing. That's the reasoning. If you wanted to know the reasoning behind it. Right, see, can you see there's a... No, it's not. Wait a minute, what's going on? I've actually pulled the stitch off. Oh, this is quite good, because this, now you can see. So I've pulled the stitch off, so the best thing to do is to now free that stitch, put it back on the needle like so, and then pull that stitch round it. Oop, where's it gone? It's because this is quite splitty, the yarn is. Yeah. Right, so there it is. So we're back to normal again. Quick tip on how to repair that. And what you do is you go into, so we're going into that without trying to split it now. And popping it on. But sometimes what happens is, because they're both very close together, it's hard to see which one's which. So maybe with your finger, pull them apart a little bit, and with the needle, there you go. And then I can knit that one now. Oh, you get out of the way, tail. Tail is trying to get in on the action too, you know, that's just a bit much. And then we're going to knit the last stitches. So those 2 rows form, oops, those 2 rows form the increases. And I now have 16 stitches on each needle. Yeah, that's quite nice, isn't it? And already, can you see? There we go. It's going to get roundy, which is kind of exciting. And that is, you know, that's basically what it is. So if you repeat what I've just done until you get 36 stitches on each needle. So once you've got 36 stitches on each needle, that means you've got a 72 stitch count, and then you're going to be starting the foot area. But if you are going with any of the other sizes, a 64 or a 68, then you knit up to until you've got 64, or you knit up until you've got 68. And then, yeah, then you'll be starting the foot area, which is, I'll show you on my sample sock. Right, so we've just done this. I'm going to marry it up with the first sock. And it's kind of nice having a first sock, because you can, like, you know, kind of, oh yeah, my progress, I can see it. Right, so that's the end bit, so it's not much progress yet. So we're going to increase until, well, I'm going to increase until I've got 72 stitches altogether, 36 on either side, and then I'm going to start the foot area. So I'm going to come back when I've finished increasing up to here. Right, I hope that was clear and plain. If you have any comments about it, I mean, if you want to have any more information or something wasn't as clear as maybe it could be, do you know, send me a comment. I'm okay for questions. And go to the pattern, which is linked in the description, and have a look at that and see what it says there. So it should say everything there too. Obviously, when you demonstrate like this, it's a bit easier, isn't it, to see exactly what someone's doing. But if you want numbers and figures, they're going to be in the pattern. Okay then, I'll see you in a bit. So we're back with our increases done for the toe area, and we've used our Drops Fable yarn, and we've discovered it's kind of a splitty yarn. I mean, it's quite nice to knit with, but at the same time a little bit troublesome. But nothing to be scared of. We have dealt with it superbly. And yeah, nice leaf shape actually, you know, if you want to make leaves. But yeah, nice rounded toe. And if we where's my sock, if we marry it up to the sock, we can see that it's exactly the same. And this is because we've been monitoring the stitch count, so make sure that your socks are the same stitch count. So anyway, we're using our king coal, and we're going to be adding that in now. And because we've got more basically of the king coal, we will probably be doing that, well, we will be doing it for the heels and the cuff. Yeah, but you can see which yarn is the one we've just knit with. So that's the working yarn, so we won't be using those needles. We're going to use the top needles and organize them so we don't get confused. They're a bit clattery on that surface, but you know, I think we're okay. Right, so it's going to be a knit, and what we do is we just hold the yarn in the back and have a sort of a not too long a tail, but enough of a tail. And we hold it firm because you don't want it slipping out. And then, wait a minute, where's my needle gone? Yeah, and basically we're just going to be knitting. So we're just going to knit all the way in the round. And every so often you might have to pull that first stitch tight from the back, because it's probably going to be loose when you go past it. Yeah. But the red and green look nice together. I quite like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to knit all the way round until we get to the last 3 stitches, and then for those we're going to basically slip them, and then we're going to continue knitting with the green, because obviously I'm doing helical. My first sock was helical, and so my second sock is as well. So we're back and we've got 3 stitches left. Now you have an option if you want to continue with one ball of yarn and you do not want to do helical knitting. Just carry on knitting in the round until you get to the afterthought heel area. But if you want to do helical knitting, then you are going to slip those 3 stitches. So what we did is we added in the yarn, we knit all the way round. We're up to the 3 end stitches of the previous colour. So we're going to go in a bit. I'm going to slip those. So we're slipping them purlwise. Right, that was on the wrong way round, so I've just straightened it. And that was as well. So, and then just pull that 2. And then release those because we just used that set of needles. Now let's start on this side with this set of needles. If we can get the end area in. It's pretty tight. Yeah, there you go. That was an anxious bit of knitting maybe. Being so tight and all. Right, so we've just knit. We have got this end bit, which is fine, that can stay there. And we've got, there's the king coal yarn that we've added in, but we're not going to knit that yet now. We're knitting with the yarn we had. Now you also have an option if you don't want to knit with that yarn and you want to knit with two totally different yarns for the helical. You can add in another yarn at this point. So probably about here is where you'd add it. But anyway, you know, just experiment and see. Right, let's move this out the way a minute. I'll tuck it in over there and organize ourselves. So that was where it's coming from. Yeah, and now we're going to knit the next row as normal. Yeah, the next round until we get to the last 3 stitches of the king coal yarn. So we're knitting there, that's in there already, it's quite nice. You can pull your back thread a little bit tighter if you think it's a bit loose. So we're going to knit until we get to the last 3 stitches, so ignoring those ones, these ones. So we're going to knit till we get here, and then we're going to be slipping these stitches. So let's knit, shall we? Now I'm going to come back when I've done that. Right, so here we are, back round the round, as it were. And that's the king coal yarn that we added in. So we added it in over here, went round. Obviously you know all this, but obviously I've just been knitting. So sorry for any repetition. So we're going to leave that yarn behind now, and we're going to slip these stitches purlwise, like so. And then we're going to pick up that king coal yarn. Oops, I just dropped a stitch. It's not good. There it is. Right, let's pick it up. Let's pick it up. Picking up a drop stitch is kind of annoying. There you go, there it is. Right, you've got to make sure you get all the bits. Yeah. There, okay. Take it over. There we go. So, picked it up. Right, so now we're going to knit normally from here. Yep. Here we are. Yeah. And we're going to knit all the way round until we get to the last 3 of the green. Then we're going to slip those, and then we're going to knit with the green yarn. And that's how the helical works. So yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do another row just to help it embed in case you didn't quite get it. And usually all the new people, to be honest, who haven't seen the first sock series, because you could just start knitting a sock from this series, from this particular video. Really, you could knit a pair. This just happens to be the second sock of this sock. Right, so I'm going to knit round now until I get to the last 3. Then I'm going to slip them, then I'm going to continue knitting. So I'll come back. I am back, and I have knit round, and I'm up to the 3 drops Fable yarn again. So I'm going to put that to one side, let it hang basically. And I'm going to slip the drops Fables 3 stitches purlwise, and then I'm going to knit normally until I get to the last 3 stitches of the king coal, and then I'm gonna knit with that. Now the reason you let me just go over some reasoning here. The reason you slip these stitches is so you don't get a kind of bump here between colours. So normally when you stripe, you see, you can get like a little jaggedy bit, and this limits that, so you don't have any jaggedy bits. Now if you look at this sock, oh sorry, cat here. If you look at this sock, you see you can't see any breaks in it. I mean, obviously there's variegated colour breaks, but that's different. You don't have kind of jagged edges anywhere. Oh, there's that stitch I dropped. Okay, I've got to mend that. So I'll probably mend that at some point. Maybe at the end of this sock, I'll show you how to mend that one. How interesting. Anyway, yeah, so you don't actually see any, any ridges, or they all look like they're just nice and stripy, don't they? So that's the point of doing this slipping of stitches. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to continue with that now and come back when I am here. And I think I knit 82 rows. And there we go. Now what you do, you see, is you are going to, you can either use the sock you've already got, or you can measure your foot. And you can measure it with the sock that you are knitting as you go along. So the thing to do is to try it on every so often, and then when you get to a point where your ankle bone, which is about here, so on your ankle bone, when you get to a point where the knitting is up to your ankle bone, that's when you stop. But I'm going to try, when I get there, and I've got 82 rows to go for me, for my 72 count large sock. But that is a kind of a personal count, if you like. So you would do your own personal count. So it's not necessary that I have to prescribe the stitch. Sorry, I've dropped those, but it doesn't matter, I'm going to pick them up. I don't have to prescribe this necessarily. I mean, you could try 82 if you're doing the 72 count one and see if that fits. But you see, you might have a shorter foot area, you know, I might have a longer one, or you might have a longer foot area, I might have a shorter one. So it's kind of making this sock kind of personal to you. And the way to do it with toe-up socks, I find the easiest way to do it is just to knit up and sort of as you go work it out. So when I've knit up to around about here, I will show you what I mean by marrying it up to your ankle. I will show you how I do that. I can't really show you with this very small bit of knitting, so that'll be later. So just start knitting, carry on knitting, and in the next episode, no, it won't be the next episode, will it? Because it's going to be this episode. Yeah, so keep on knitting until I will be showing you next how to marry that up to the ankle. But once I've done a bit of knitting. Okay, see you in a minute. So I've knit up to my heel, and for this 72 count sock, to get up to my heel was about 82 stitches. So I've done that, and I've kind of mirrored what I did in the first sock. But if you're here for the first time and you haven't looked at the rest of the series and you haven't looked at the first sock, then one way to measure your foot is to actually pop it on. So I've got my feet here and I'm going to pop it on and show you how I measure. So hang on a sec, let me do that. Right, so I've popped the sock on, and what you do is you can either pop it on and have a sock with a clear definition of a heel, which this is not on purpose, because I thought I'd show you how you do it without another sock, because not all of us have a sock that defines your heel properly. Sometimes they're a bit long. I mean, this sock, when I pull it, the heel pulls out anyway. So, yeah, it's a commercial sock. But the reason was to just show you that's my ankle. And when I've popped the sock on, what I need to do is I need to make sure that this aligns and marries up to the bit of the sock that I was knitting. So you sort of find your ankle, and then it's straight down from the ankle. So you can use a ruler if you like, and if your sock is there, that means you're in the right place, because that's where the heel starts from your ankle bone. There you go. So like I said, I've actually married this up to the sock I had before, because I did the first sock, and we did exactly the same thing in that series of sock knitting, which is still this series, I suppose, because this is like part 9, isn't it? But you know, but this is the second sock, and that was for the first sock. So if I marry it up to the sock I've got, and so that was my first sock, and here's my second sock, and we're at the heel point now. So what I'm going to do is put in the waste yarn. I'm going to show you how to do that. So it's a good idea to use some contrasting yarn. So I haven't really got any blues in this sock, so this will stand out nicely. Now previously with the first sock, I knit this in a helical way, which caused problems later, which you may have encountered if you watched that. If you didn't watch that, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to show you here anyway, so everything is contained in this video. But you might want to go back for any other tips and tricks and how to solve problems, because you know, people encounter problems as you go along. Right, so the first thing, let's get some bits out of the way so we've got some clear space. Right, first of all, you've got to make sure that your stitch count is even on either side. So if it's a 36 stitch count, make sure both sides have 36 stitches, and so on and so forth. So if you're doing a smaller size, the same applies. Make sure that you've got an even number of stitches on both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for the side that hasn't really got much of the helical stuff going on. So on this side we've got the red and we've got the green. So they're both on the same side, which is quite lucky really. So we're just going to knit across here. Now if one of these yarns is on this side, then the thing to do is to just knit over it and not incorporate it in the knitting, because like I said, that's what we did last time. We made a bit of a boo-boo with that one, I'd say, but you know, it's all a learning curve. And yeah, so even someone like myself, a seasoned knitter, did not preempt that. So you know, things happen, doesn't matter. Right, so first of all we're going to offer in our yarn, hold it at the back, nice tail, and make sure you've got the right needle. And then let's bring it in and we're going to just knit. There we go. Apologies for any noises in the background. Stuff going on outside beyond my control. So we're just going to knit to the end. Might as well do it while we're here. And it's kind of, actually it's quite satisfying knitting another yarn in. It's almost like a bit of exciting fun. You know, get your excitement where you can, you know what I mean? Yeah, but I mean, I rather actually like that colour with this as well. And sometimes it does give you idea for like colour combination. You think, oh, I could use that later for something or other. I could use that with that kind of pink or that kind of green, etc. It's a real pop actually. If you wanted to put a real pop of colour into your knitting, then having a real like contrast like this will do that. I'm nearly at the end of that, not row but half row, because we're not doing the whole of the row. So this is where the hole is going to be, and we're going to be picking up stitches when we come back to it. So that's not going to happen now. We're just going to do that so that we can carry on with our round and round knitting. So there we have it, a nice line of knitting. You can pull that in a bit, and then you've got to cut this bit of thread here. Let me find my scissors. Right, yeah, so we're cutting the thread. I'll give you a bit of a tail, you don't want it coming out. There we go. Right, so we're kind of done. You'll pull that needle out. Right, now the next thing to do is think about where our helical knitting is, and it's over here. So we're going to just carry on knitting. Now this part of the knitting was just here, so we're just going to carry on as if we had done nothing here, basically. Well, it's pretty loud outside. I hope it's not loud inside. I hope my condenser's working. Although there's only so much it can condense, I think. Right, and we're just going to knit. So that's my working yarn. We're just going to knit over that bit of waste knitting is what it's called, or temporary bit of knitting. A cat hair. They get everywhere. Whoa, that's big. That noise is big, so sorry about that. Hopefully that'll be gone when we come back to this. So I'm just going to carry on now, knitting round and round, like I did here, until I get to the cuff. So I will be returning when I am at the cuff area. Oh yeah, now they stop. Now I'm pretty much going to stop talking. They've stopped as well. Right, so there you go. Yeah, so I'm just going to carry on round and round knitting. And when I get back to my helical part, I'll just carry on helical. If you're not doing helical, that's great, because, you know, you're just going to be carrying on with your knitting. Not much to think about there, I think, which is lovely, because it works really nicely as cinema knitting, or knitting and watching the telly. You know, this sort of knitting is great for that. So anyway, I'm going to see you probably in 2 seconds when I've finished that. In reality, probably a whole day. It'll probably be tomorrow for me. But you know what? This is encouraging me to make this sock very quickly, because usually sometimes I've had a sock where I took literally months making it, because, you know, a case of picking it up and doing it, and I was doing other things as well. So this really makes you hone in and focus on one thing and get that done. Anyway, see you in a minute. I've knit up the leg area and I've married it up to my other sock, like so. But basically that for me was 70 stitch, no, not stitches, rows. Sorry, that was 70 rows. So yeah, so I've done 70 rows. Now I'm going to be doing the cuff. So let me show you how I tend to do them. It's a simple 1x1 rib, which involves a knit and a purl. So those are the 2 stitches you kind of need to know. I've got some tutorials in a playlist somewhere, how to do a knit and how to do, but well, you obviously know how to do a knit. And you may know how to do a purl as well. But if you're a newbie and you're not quite sure, then you can go to the playlist. But I will show you here as well the process of doing a purl stitch. Not a difficult process, but yeah. Anyway, so we'll start by organising our needles, of course. So for the rib cuff, let me just explain something here. You have the option to use either yarn, so you can either use the Fable, which I use the toe for, or you can use the King Cole, which I am using the cuff for, to be honest. You though, it's up to you. I have got my little knitting pouch. I've got less Fable anyway than King Cole, so I'm going to put the King Cole cuff in, and I may just put King Cole heels in as well. Well, I actually have, haven't I? Yeah, I have here actually. That's a King Cole heel, so I will be putting a King Cole heel. And the reason for that is there was less of this yarn when I started. So this was 100 grams, this is 50. You only need about 100 grams for a sock anyway, really. But yeah, I mean that would probably do 2 heels anyway, but sometimes it's a risk, you see. You don't want to play yarn chicken. Chicken yarn? Yarn chicken? I think that's the terminology. Sometimes it's a fun game, but I don't know. When you're doing heels and things, it's not a fun game. Because then you have like extra threads here that you kind of have to weave in because you've used different yarns. Anyway, I digress. I'm divulging too much and therefore digressing. Okay, right, let's let's get back to it. So we're going to put in the we're going to put the cuff in with the king coal, and it's a knit and a purl. Right, so organising our needles, we can see that we were knitting over here, and handily it's the last stitch, well obviously because we knit that row. But what we're going to do with this one is we're actually just going to cut it off. I'll do that in a minute, but we don't need that one anymore, and we're going to sew that in later. So organising our knitting, we know now that that is what we've knit, so let's just get rid of that needle. Oop. Yep, and we're going to use that yarn. Make sure we've got the other end of that needle. Right, let's bring it a bit closer. So we're going to knit the first stitch. Right, and then to purl, just in case somebody doesn't know how to purl. To purl, you bring the yarn forward, and then you go in like this. You know when you knit, you go in like this. Yeah, there, like that. But when you purl, you go in the other way. Bring it in, so you can see. Take your yarn round. There, and that's a purl done. And then the next one is a knit, and then it's a purl. So, knit, purl, and you're going to do that for about 10 rows. I think I did 10 rows on this one. Yeah, I did about 10 rows. And then when we've finished the 10 rows, we're going to do a stretchy cast off, which it just worked out to be, you know, this is a variegated yarn, of course. It just worked out to be a different colour after the 10 rows, but you don't have to do, you don't have to make sure it's, the other one's not going to be probably like that. It's probably going to be different. And that's the fun of variegated stuff, because you're never going to get it exactly the same. So, you know, it's kind of, actually, interestingly, it's marrying up a bit. You know, we've got this sort of thing going on, which is kind of, that's interesting, isn't it? Down here, what we've got going on down here. Okay, so down here is quite sort of different, but up here, marrying up a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to knit those rows and come back and show you how to cast off. So just to go over it one more time, it's a knit, and then it's a purl. That's a very basic rib. This is basic rib. Okay. The rib is finished. I've done 10 rows. So the next thing to do is to cast it off. So we're going to do a stretchy cast off. And make sure we've got the needles in the right position. So get that needle out of the way. I like to just tuck it in there. And then making sure we've got the right needle. So we're going to knit one. Like so. Then we're going to purl. And then we're going to put them back on the needle. So both stitches go back on the needle. And then we purl that, because that was the last stitch we did. It was a purl. The next stitch is a knit. Let's bring it back in a little bit. So we put them both back onto the needle, and then we knit that stitch. So basically, yeah, you're going to do that for the rest of the row, really. So if the stitch is a purl, like this one, when you put the needles, when you put the stitches back on the needle, then you purl it. You purl the stitch. And then when it's a knit, like so, and you put the stitches back on the needle, you knit it. And you kind of continue doing that until you get to the last stitch, basically. Yeah, so that's purl. And then that is a knit. Oop. And what you get is a kind of a nice stretchy bind off. So I'm going to cast off the rest of these, and when I get here to the last two stitches, I'll show you what I do there. I mean, it'll just be me casting them off, but I'll just show you. Yeah, okay. I'm at the last 2 stitches and I'm going to cut the thread. Yep, because I'm going to be putting a darning needle on, so. Okay. Right. So I've cut my thread and I'm going to add a darning needle. I'm just holding all that into the background. You can just cast off those stitches and do the finishing later if you want to, but I'm just going to show you how to do it here while the stitches are on the needle. So, right, now we haven't knit the last stitch yet, so we'll knit the last stitch. I'll just put the darning needle down for a sec. Maybe you don't have to knit the last stitch, it's up to you. See how it goes. I mean, it's a good time to experiment. And then with the needle, I'm going to turn the work round for a minute. And I'm going to go into that last stitch first, and then I'm going to go into that second from last stitch. Remove my needle, I'll take the thread through and then turn it round again. Right, and you will have a kind of a nice area there that hopefully will make it invisible. Right, then you look for your next row. So that's the row that we've just sort of cast everything off from. That's the last cast off, and this is where we started. So that first wonky stitch going that way is the stitch we need to put our needle in through. So you put it underneath both the legs, take it through, and then don't pull too tightly. There. And then you're going to go, you could go back into it actually. I mean, I usually go just underneath it, but let's try going back into it and see what happens. What if we go back into it? Whoa, that's made it pretty invisible. Okay. So that's the way to go. So go back into that. And normally what I do is, you see, and I think with the last sock, I go underneath here, and it kind of works really well anyway. It doesn't really, it's not that noticeable, but this has finished it. Actually, that's finished it a lot better. Woohoo, you discover something every day. And then you go back in underneath here somewhere again. Thing is not to pull tightly though, because then it becomes a bit of a knot looking stitch, yeah. And then we turn the work round so that we can weave into this top area. Now, if it wasn't variegated, it was solid, you could probably weave down here or something, but we don't really want a line of now sort of white going down here, noticeable. So we're going to take it across, and we're going to just, I mean, you can just weave it like this, or you can just really follow where the stitches are going, etc. Doesn't really make a big difference, to be honest with you, at the top here. But you can try and follow where the stitches are going. You know, it's funny because when you're doing this, often you think, oh, the stitches are going in that direction, and then you play it back and you went, oh, wait a minute, I don't think they were going in that direction. So if you see an anomaly, don't worry, you try and follow the stitches as best you can, and it's easy if you can see kind of a colour going somewhere. I mean, I've got the red underneath, which makes it slightly easier to see where the stitch is going. Yeah, there it is. Right, so we've yeah, that's probably what I'll do. I won't do any more than that. Pull it out a bit here if you think it's a little bit uneven looking, but yeah, I think that's all right. You know, that's fair. I'm just going to cut that. Oh dear. Scissors are not very good. Okay, right, it's all done. That's done. And when you wash it, that'll all pull in, and you'll have a nice edge there. Right, now what we've got to do is we've got to pick up these stitches. So with one of your needles, now this needle is going to pick up this side, the other needle is going to pick up the other side. So we're picking up one side of the blue and the other side of the blue. And what you do is you start at the edge, and what tends to happen is that if you have, like, I've got a 36 stitch count, yeah, so I'm going to pick up 36 stitches, yeah, but then I'm going to pick up one at the end of each of these sections. So each row will have 4 extra stitches. Now you can just pick up one for both of the rows if you want to. That'll give you 2 extra stitches. So it's all a math game if you want to do it. I like to pick up more than less because I like a sort of a more comfier roundy toe. And if you look at this one, sorry, not toe. 1 minute, what am I talking about? It's a heel. Toe is done. So as you can see, I like it a little bit more comfy. And it might look a bit like weird here, but actually when you do this, you know, the ball of your foot sits nicely in that area then, you see. But obviously it's up to you. So if you've got 36, which is what I've got, then you're going to pick up at least one from either, you know, end of the row, or 2. So each of the half rows has 1 extra stitch on one side and 1 extra stitch on the other side. And sometimes I pick up extra, so I end up with like 4 or whatever. Anyway, so I'm going to pick up one of the legs. So if you look carefully, you've got 2 legs here, and you've got 2 legs here. And I like to pick up either the right leg or the left leg, because that leg is going to, it's either going to be a correct stitch or a twisted stitch. So if you pick up sort of whatever, you know, a right one here and a left one here, you'll find that the stitches are not sitting properly. One will be twisted and one won't. So, you know, it's something to work out afterwards anyway. If you've got any twisted stitches, you have to kind of reorganize them, and I'll try and show you that if I remember. Okay, so I'm picking up the right leg, so that's the first one. And it's sort of, it's not where the blue is, as it were. It's over this side. I might end up picking an extra one over here, but we'll see. So there we go. That's a right. That's a right. Where's it gone? Focus. Right, yeah. So, you know, it's pretty easy when you've got variegated. If you've got like sort of colour changes like this, I can see that all the green stitches are the ones I need to pick up. So I'm avoiding the blue because that's where the hole's going to be. So we're going to take all the blue out, and I'm doing the row just above the blue stitches. So I'll come back when I get to the other end. Right, so I've picked up, and I've got a couple of extra ones from either side. So I've got about 40 on mine. So mine started out as a 36 stitch count, and I've picked up extra stitches at the end because I want it kind of a bit wider. And that also limits any holes you're going to get. Now for the other side, if I can find the needle, what have I done with it? Right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up a couple of extra stitches and maybe possibly this one to avert a hole. So get that one, then, oh, where are we? Right, so I'm picking up these red ones. Yeah, there's one there. Yeah, where is it? Can't see it. It's in there somewhere. Right, there it is. Okay, so take your time when you're doing this. You know, there's no huge hurry. What you might want to do, if you can't see the stitch because that waist stitch is just too big or fat or whatever, you might want to get your hand in there and pull the waist yarn a little bit, tighten it up a bit, because then you'll see the other stitches better. Right, so I've done that. And also sometimes if you put your hand in there, it's also easier to maneuver if you put your hand in there anyway. So I've got that one and that one. And yeah, this is kind of just a lengthy process. That waist yarn does not want to move out of the way, so I'm just going to pick it up with it and then cut it out later, don't worry. Center. Okay, there it is. Hard to hold it still. Right, okay. Anyway, you get the gist. It's literally you're going to pick up one of the legs, the right leg or the left leg. I'm picking up the right leg. But if you do pick up a different leg, you haven't realised, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. it's going to be sorted out later, and I'll show you how you angle your stitches, making sure they're straight actually. Right, I'll meet you back when I've done all that. So if you have, let's say you've got 40, you've picked up extra, you've got too many stitches, you can always, you know, get rid of them later. Either reduce by taking them in, you know, knitting two together, etc. Or at this stage, you can, you know, after you've sort of gone round it and decided about the stitches, you can then sort of take some off. But I've got like 40 on either side and I'm okay with that. If you want to keep it to 36 or to whatever your stitch count should be, like 36 on either side, that is. So if I wanted to keep that as a 72 stitch count, not have any extra, just make sure you don't pick up any extra at the ends. I would say though, picking up extra at the ends helps to reduce the holes. So if you, in best practice, I would say pick them up. We're going to do the setup rounds. While you're doing the setup rounds, you can, you know, do a couple of knit two togethers and then take it back down to your original count. So that's an option. Anyway, what we're going to do now is, sorry after me waffling a bit about that, I'm going to cut the yarn. So you can actually just start pulling it out from the end if you want to. So it's totally up to you. Or you can cut from the middle by pulling it out a bit, getting your scissor in there. I like to do it this way because sometimes you've got some raw stitches on the end. You don't realise it, you haven't picked up something properly. And you kind of get there afterwards and you kind of realise what's going on. So if you've got any raw stitch, you won't necessarily make holes that you have to repair, you know. I mean, I find this way better, but you know, you could, if you wanted to, not bother with the cutting, just start taking out from one side. So I'm just going to finish doing that. Yeah, so I'm just going to finish doing that, and then, yeah. This is what your pickup of the stitches should look like. Well, it shouldn't look like that because I've dropped a stitch, but it doesn't matter. You might find you've dropped stitches at the edge, you know, etc., etc., and it's all messy looking. But don't worry, you can, before you even start knitting, you can actually start organising the stitches to make sure they're all on there properly. And the way to do that is to, you know, pull them in as if you're going to knit. But then with the other side of the needle, pick up the stitches on this side just to make sure you've got them all in the right order. So that first stitch, right, so that first stitch is the wrong way round really, because that leg should be like that, shouldn't it? Yeah, it should. Right, that one's okay. That one's okay. So you see that, yeah, the legs are, you've got the two. That one should be, it shouldn't be facing, it shouldn't be this way. It should be, what are you doing? Yeah, it should be this way. Trying to do something here, little cat. Trying to do something. What are you doing? Come on, little baby. Come on, little baby. You sit here. Little baby, sit here for a minute. I'm going to sit with you in my lap in a minute. Right, I'm back. Yeah, so you just got to make sure that all the stitches are angled the right way round before you start knitting. And you can do this while you're knitting as well, but the reason I'm doing it is because, just to show you really, but also I dropped a stitch, and this is the point where you can, if you've dropped a stitch somewhere or it's gone awry, stitch has gone awry somewhere, you can pick it up and repair before you start knitting, so you don't have any holes and things. I'm trying to get to that dropped stitch. Right, there it is. Now you can use like a crochet hook or something if you want to pick it up. But what I tend to do is I just grab it, put it on the needle, and get the next one that it should have been, the next stitch it should have been a green. It's a bit difficult with splitty yarn, of course, this sort of procedure, but let's try. There it is. Yeah, no, don't want you on there yet. and then that goes over, and then on the back the other one, there it is. So that should have been a stitch. Take it over, there you go. Right, that one's the wrong way round, so I think that one the right one, that's the wrong way round as well. It's a bit split, I think. Okay, that's all right, it's actually okay. Some things you can obviously organise when you start knitting. So we're nearly there. Nearly. Oop. Right, so what's going on here? It's that one. And then that. Oh, I see this. Is that? Okay, so something's been dropped. So this is a drop stitch. So let's repair it. And it's this green bit behind. If I can grab it. There it is. That goes on. Then there we go. And then that stitch. It's all a bit tight, of course, because you've got no loose threads. These are all knitted stitches, and they're very tiny ones as well. So, right, okay, so that's all right. I'm going to put that one on, and then this one's green. That's green, yeah. So that side is nice and neat, and I'm going to do the same with the other side. Then I'm going to count them, make sure I've got the number of stitches that I want, because I kind of want it to be exactly the same as the other sock. So for instance, with the other sock I had 40 on each side. If I pick up less now, it's going to be a different shape. It's going to be smaller. So I must make sure I pick up exactly the amount I picked up with this first sock. So even if that means picking up a couple of extra ones that don't look like they need to be picked up, I will pick them up, because you know, I kind of need it to be the same. So the way to always have a sock that it matches in size the other sock is to make sure you have the correct number of stitches on the needles. Right, so I'm going to do that for the other side, and then we're going to start knitting. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 setup rounds. So hang on, let me just do the other side. Okay, the other side is fine. It's done. And now we are going to start our 2 setup rounds before we start decreasing. So I'm using my king coal. And I'm just going to add it in. Bit of a tail, so that it doesn't get all well, so it doesn't come out really. Put that needle away, we don't need that one. And use the other needle on that set. Oops. And then yeah, and just start knitting. There we go. Now that tail's going to be loose every so often, so you have to just pull it tight when you go past it. So when you go round, pull it tight. So you can do 2 setup rows. I'm going to do 4, purely because that's my go-to. I always do 4 for me. If you have smaller feet, you might not need to do 4. You see, that's a loose stitch, you see, I was just saying. So you're just going to have to pull that in every so often, particularly when you go past it. So if I look here, the first 4 rows are a setup row, or setup rows, but you can do 2 options. Yeah, right, so I've actually just done 1 setup round because I just wanted to say that if you've picked up extra stitches at the end and you don't want them because you're thinking, no, that's going to be too big, I don't want that, then now you can actually start decreasing and getting rid of them. So if you've picked up 1 stitch from either end of the needle, so you've got 4 extra stitches, you can actually now in this round knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, and then carry on, that sort of thing. Knit 2 together, knit 1, and then do the same for the other side. Yeah, and that will decrease back down to the number of stitches you originally had. So if you want to do that, doing that during the setup round is the best option. And you only have to do it once if you only want to get rid of 4 stitches. Or if you have any extra anomaly stitches, let's say one side's got 37 and one side's got 36, you've got an extra stitch one side. Well, now's the time to get rid of that one stitch and correct any errors, so you don't have errors going forward. At this stage, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be noticeable. No one's going to know. But later on, it will be evident. You'll either have too many stitches or too less stitches, and then the sock won't fit or the sock won't match the other sock. So make sure that you've got the same amount of stitches as the other sock in this setup round. So at the moment, when you pick them up and you knit one row, it doesn't actually matter how many stitches you've got. Even them out now if you want to, if you need to, or if you want to. Even them out now. I'm going to continue and come back when I've done my 4 rows, because I've only done one yet. I've knit my 4 setup rows and now I'm ready to decrease. And there's lots of ways you can decrease. There's different various ways of doing it, but we're going to do it kind of the basic way, really, make it really easy. And I like decreasing like this just because it's quick and easy and I don't have to think about it too much. There you go. My reasoning. So first of all, we knit 2 stitches. And then we knit 2 stitches together, knitwise. There we go. And that's basically the decrease. And then we knit to 4 stitches from the end of the row. Just get there. How fast am I? Let's see. I'm also staring through the camera to make sure I'm in the middle, because your hands tend to move all over the place when you're knitting, to be honest. So you kind of have to make sure you're keeping them center stage. Right, so we're nearly there, we're nearly there, we're nearly there. Whoa, yeah, nearly there. Yep. Oh, wait a minute, what's happened here? See, the stitch is split again. If you find a split stitch, just pop it back on the needle. Try and sort it out, because otherwise the knitting looks a bit rough, doesn't it, if you have split stitches everywhere. Okay, so we've got the 4 stitches. And we're just going to knit them together like so. And then, what's that needle doing? It's like fingers and thumbs, but it's needles and needles. Okay, so that's one side done. We're going to repeat that. Oh, sorry, what's happened? Okay. Right. So we're going to repeat that on the other side. Then the next row is going to just be a plain knit row, and then we're going to decrease again. So you're decreasing every alternate row. And for my stitch count, which is 72, I'm going to decrease until I've got 16 stitches left on each needle. And then I'm going to cast off, and it's going to be a Kitchener stitch. So that's what we're going to do. So I will be back when I've done a good amount of decreases and I've got 16 stitches left. Now, if you are doing a different stitch count, then you can still sort of decrease to 16 stitches if you want a kind of a not too pointy end or not too pointy heel. And if we look here, this was 16. I mean, that's pointy enough, isn't it? You don't really want it pointier than that. You could even just sort of, do 20 or something like that. Have even less of a pointy heel. Totally up to you, of course. It kind of rounds off nicely, so that's all right. Yeah, you don't want it to be a, an elf hat or something. Anyway, righty-ho. Anyway, I'm going to be back in a minute. So, yeah. I've done the decreases, and now I'm at the point where the sock is nearly finished. I've just got to close up the hole. So I've got 16 stitches on either side, and I'm going to use a needle. So I've already cut my thread, and I've got a goodly sum of thread because I don't want to run out. Yeah, so make sure you've got enough yarn. Probably about that much is all right, like a couple of, a couple of sock lengths maybe. because more is better than less. Right, so you hold your 2 needles like so, and with your darning needle, first of all you go into this front stitch as if to knit. Yep, but we're not going to take it off yet, sorry. There we go. So as if to knit in the front stitch, and then the back one is as if to purl. Where are we? So you're kind of holding 2 needles together as if to purl, and then we also take that off. Yep, there we go. And then the next stitch is as if to knit. So we're always going to be doing this across 2 stitches. Or we can just grab it, there it is. And the first stitch always comes off and the second stitch stays on. So with then we go back to the first needle, and the first stitch is as if to knit, and we take that off. Oops. And the second stitch is as if to purl, and we leave that one on. And again, do this carefully, you know, take your time, there's no hurry, unless you need socks to wear quickly. So we're going into the back needle again as if to purl, and that comes off, and then the second stitch is as if to knit. There we go, there. And then the front one is as if to knit, and then as if to purl. And we're just going to carry on doing that, as if to purl, as if to knit. So the first stitch always comes off over the over the 2 stitches you're working with on each side. The first one always comes off, and the second one stays on. So as if to knit, as if to purl. Now I always kind of forget the order, so you know, you might have to refer back. Or write it down, maybe, perhaps, you know, is another option. As if to purl, as if to knit, and then as if to knit, as if to purl. Right, and you can see already, yeah, that's quite nice. So I'm just going to finish that off, and then as if to purl, as if to knit, as if to knit, and then that one's going to come off, as if to purl. Right, I'm just going to do that to the end and be back. Right, so I'm at the last 2 stitches, and I've just gone through this, I've just gone through the two on this side, so this is where I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go into that other stitch, and like that, and I'm going to remove the needles. I'm going to take my thread through it, and then I'm going to put my hand in the sock. See where we are. I'll show you. So that's where I am, and I want to put my needle now back in there and through down to the bottom, to the inside. Pull it out. Pull. There we go. Yeah. So that should. Got to pull it maybe tight. Oh yeah, there you go. So you don't want like big puffy bits of yarn. Looks a bit loose, doesn't it? But it doesn't matter, if it's loose we can always tighten it up a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, so that's supposed to go through really. Where's the yarn gone? Oh, well. Right. Yeah. Yeah, so if you get something like that, best thing to do is, obviously it's not pulling the stitch tight, so you can go back in, go through it again, like so. You know when it's splitty yarn, sometimes it's better to offer up the back of the needle, just so you don't go through the split. There it is. And then if I pull that through again, that should now go through all right. Yep. So, you know, I suppose you kind of want it neat. I mean, is it that important? Maybe not, but there you go, it's neat now. So if you do have a little bit of a bobble on one of the ends where the stitch seems to be not going in, just pop the yarn back through the stitch. Sometimes what happens is the needle splits the yarn and it doesn't go through the stitch properly, and that's why you get a bobble. So make sure you get the, like I said, maybe use the back of the needle so that it doesn't split it. Go through again and bring it around. So now I'm going to quickly show you how I'm going to sew in that end, just to finish the sock off. Well, where's the end? There it is. Right, so what you do is, to finish it off, you follow the stitch. Yeah, there we go. They're very small, aren't they? So, you know, it's quite a bit difficult to see somewhat. And you follow it through like so, and it's going in there. Where's it going? Oh yeah, here it is. It's going in here actually, isn't it? Oh, I've dropped me thread my yarn back up. This is a bit tricky, and again this kind of takes some time, so best to spend time doing it rather than rushing it. I mean, you could just, if you want to, you can just sort of, you know, wind it round these stitches, but I found what happens is you get like a little tight lump, which isn't like, where are we? Actually, let me zoom in. Oh yeah, that's better. Right, and a tight lump is not much fun. Right, so I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to follow that green bit now. Right, okay. So you just need to pick one really. The initial, it doesn't matter where it goes initially, but then pick sort of where it's going. So it's going through there. And then it's going, where else is it going? Going through there. Oh yeah, and then it's going through there. Yeah, like so. Oops. Oop, it's picked up something else as well. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, and then we can follow it through here. So it's going through this green one. And then it's going down here. Yeah, just follow it round, see, and see that sort of merges in. You can't even see it. It's quite nice. And then here we are again. Yeah, just do that for a little bit and then just cut your yarn, because with wool it kind of has this property of kind of felting into itself. So ends tend to felt up and they don't come out anyway, so you don't have to do this for very long, but just for a little bit. Carry on. Yeah, so just sort of carry on doing that for the rest of the, like that one for instance. There's one up here. Yeah, so you just basically you're just going along, follow the stitch round, sort of it will sort of be curvy and a windy path. But yeah, you know, and then pretty much your sock is done. And cut off the ends, which I'll do in a minute. Let's have a look at the sock. So here we go, there we are. So that sock, and where's the other one gone? Okay, I've got the other one somewhere. Right, going to try them on now. Yeah, so the pattern is in the description, and that's linked down below for this sock. Feel free to head over there and check it out, but all the information on how to knit the sock is in the videos. Obviously in the pattern there are some facts and figures. So for instance stitch counts and things, etc. So you might want to look at the pattern occasionally while you're knitting up. Alternatively you can just use the pattern, but it's always nice to do a knit along. I love doing knit alongs. I do many, well I won't say I do many because it takes a long time to knit something anyway, but I'd say I do quite a few knit alongs when I feel like it, you know, I feel. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to try these on now. We're just waffling. Here are the socks in all their glory. And they're really comfy. They fit me nicely. As you can see, I've got big feet. Yeah, anyway. The foot area, I did 82 stitches, which for me is the correct amount, because I like it to be slightly loose, because I know it's going to pull in, because that's what well, that's what wool does. But if you're knitting cotton socks, you might not want it. You might want to take off 4 or 5 rows. But again, you see, for me this is correct because it's kind of in line. That's my ankle bone there, in line with my ankle bone. Yeah. But if you want a sock that you need to stretch onto your foot, then maybe, you know, you could have less, a couple of less rows. In a way, you kind of have to make a couple to find which ones fit you. You know, how many stitches are going to fit you. And each yarn is different as well. But when it's 75% wool and 25% polyamide, usually, hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't really matter. It'll fit. It'll fit you. I think the thing to do is to kind of work out what yarns actually work nicely as well. I mean, King Cole, for instance, I know it's quite a nice yarn, and the Drops Fable is as well, actually, apart from being a bit splitty. And then the leg area, that's totally up to you how long you want it, and mine is up to there, and I think that's, for me, that's long enough. I don't really want it longer than that. Yeah, so I've got my socks on now. I hope all of you have managed to get your socks maybe not done this minute, because I spent 2 days doing the second sock, and I can't remember which one the second sock is now, but anyway, the second sock took me a couple of days to do. But yeah, I was filming as well, so fair play, you know. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to leave it at that, and yeah, happy knitting. Any questions, pop them in the comments. I'll try and answer them, even if they're technical. Yeah. Woohoo! It's the best, isn't it? Knitting with a cat, watching your telly. Yes, let's make progress. Coming along. Baby, the little kitty, little kitty, little kitty, little kitty, baby, little kitty. Snuggy baby. You snuggly baby. You snuggly baby. You snuggly baby. You're lovely. You're lovely. You're lovely baby. You're lovely baby.